Hello everyone and welcome to a new video here on my channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit different in regards to my Ultimate Decades series. Since instead of playing with our family and continuing on with the new decade, I thought it would be nice to go back and visit what happened throughout the past decade for anyone that might want a refresher or are new to the series. So, in order to do that, we have to start all the way back in the year 1300 when we meet our main household, the Hastings, which within this small little family, we met our founding parents, Arthur and Marie, and met their two beautiful children, William and Abigail. Unfortunately, though, this sweet start turned rather sour when our founding mother, Marie, sadly passed away due to a death roll, leaving poor Arthur to love, care, and guide his two children in the cruel peasant world of the 1300s. In order to fight the demands of this peasant life, Arthur, William, and Abigail were forced to push on from this painful loss and begin filling their time by foraging, hunting, fishing, and gardening to stay alive. Throughout this fight for survival, however, Arthur never forgot the responsibility he now held to set up his children's lives before reaching his eventual demise. This responsibility sent both our Arthur and William to the local tavern in search for an arranged wedding. Quickly, though, Arthur managed to run into an old friend from the Bennet household, Lester Bennet, and the matchmaking begun. Thankfully, all went well and a meeting was orchestrated between the two of them, leaving only a few months in between until William and Lester's daughter Elizabeth Bennet were set to meet. Upon their meeting, it was clear that it was love at first sight and both felt so drawn and comfortable together, regardless of only just meeting each other. In the end, William was so eager to propose a courtship that one another quickly became married at the local church and also managed to consummate their wedding later that night in attempts for an heir. This brings us to 1301, which began with the purchase of a few new farm animals. The attempts for an heir also continued until we finally got the news that Elizabeth was pregnant, sending cheers throughout the entire household. During this year, we also managed to celebrate May Day, which consisted of everyone meeting together, singing, dancing, and celebrating the idea of a new Hastings/Bennet child. However, the celebrations didn't finish there, as Arthur set his sights on a new potential suitor for his own daughter, Abigail. This led the family back to the tavern where Arthur began attempting to build a relationship with the tavern owner, Jeremiah Heidelbrand, in order to strike up a meeting between Abigail and his only son, Neville. Unfortunately, though, Arthur did not have the ability to persuade Jeremiah as of yet, so he continued to bask in the glory of his success with William and Elizabeth's wedding. During this year, a visit to the local bathhouse was also in order, as our Sims hygiene grew to be an overwhelming issue. Upon this visit, we were introduced to a mysterious stranger that seemed to take a liking to our beautiful Abigail. This was not at the comfort of our Arthur, as he quickly jumped in and attempted to scare this mysterious yet familiar man away, leaving with little success. To end off the year, however, Elizabeth gave birth to our first child, Sigrid, who thankfully surpassed her death roll along with Elizabeth, leaving a spark of happiness when wrapping up 1301. 1302 started out as peacefully as it could, with the Hastings family attempting to adjust to life with a new baby. Thankfully, it wasn't too long, however, since Sigrid was almost immediately ready to age up and brave another round of death rolls. With great luck, Sigrid somehow managed to survive her death roll, but not without some hardship, as I quickly realized I had the infant bug where we couldn't put her in her crib. To combat this annoyance, however, we did manage to secure a small little rendezvous with Abigail and the mysterious stranger Christian. They met at the dead of night near the local tavern and shared a magical night that Abigail was sure not to forget. This was until Arthur caught her sneaking back home and lost it at her, causing a slight rift in their relationship. To finish off this year, we also had some unexpected news from Elizabeth's mother, which was that Mary had fallen pregnant with Elizabeth's new potential sibling. Thankfully, after the issues presented in 1302, 1303 began on a more light-hearted note, with Arthur realizing he no longer wanted to be hot-headed but more cheerful in his approach. Due to this sudden change of heart, Arthur finally apologized to Abigail and they both began to find common ground and build up their relationship, just like Marie would have wanted. During this time, however, our second and surprisingly third babies, Harris and Hamish, were born, which led to more successful death rolls, with both them and Elizabeth surviving. This luck also continued into Sigrid's toddler role, which she passed with flying colours. Later that year, and with Arthur's newfound approval, Abigail managed to meet up with Christian once more in hopes of being courted. Unfortunately, though, that wish came crashing down as Christian let out his true colours and revealed himself to be the local lord's nephew, who never wished to marry a peasant like Abigail and more wished to be entertained for the moment, leaving poor Abigail heartbroken. Happiness was only around the corner, though, since we managed to have another successful birthday for both Harris and Hamish, while also ending the year with the Hastings family visiting the local tavern in efforts to celebrate this luck and also provide Abigail with the opportunity to meet Arthur's original suitor, Neville Heidelbrand. 1304 started with lots of chaos as our family began to grow and the fire saga began. We struggled through each morning due to the multitude of repeating fires and daily chores of peasant life. Thankfully, though, amongst all of the chaos, Neville surprised Abigail with a visit, which brightened her mood and got her mind off the horrible events that occurred last year. Throughout all of this, we also got the surprising news that Elizabeth was once again expecting, which was overwhelming for all of us. In celebration of the news, however, we thought it might be a good idea to visit Elizabeth's parents, Mary and Lester, to share the big news and introduce the children to their other grandparents. Unfortunately, though, this light-hearted event ended in tragedy as another fire broke out, which sent me and the Sims spiraling. Thankfully, though, the fire was resolved and we got to celebrate Elizabeth's pregnancy and meet her new baby brother, Arnold. To continue in this celebration, we also held a small birthday for the twins' toddler birthday, which they both somehow miraculously survived. Later in the year, Abigail managed to escape to the local tavern in efforts to meet up with Neville again, which led to them being completely enamored with each other, constantly joking, laughing, and even flirting a bit. After Abigail's successful visit to the tavern, we then made our way into the royal household in order to begin setting up the lives of our reigning monarchs, Henry and Isabella. This included starting their pregnancy journey and attempting to conceive an heir. This theme continued back into the main household since the end of the year led to the birth of our fourth and final baby, Anne, who somehow managed to survive her death rolls along with her beautiful mother, Elizabeth. To start 1305, we had Anne's birthday, which, to the surprise of all of us, ended up being successful. Somehow, Anne had managed to beat her infant death roll and was set to live another day. But besides this luck, we also managed to celebrate our first St. Valentine's Day, which led both of our couples to the local tavern to celebrate. This celebratory atmosphere led to more flirts and even a first kiss occurring by our new couple, Neville and Abigail. Unfortunately, though, this atmosphere was quickly diffused when we had yet another fire start, which at this point was getting a little bit ridiculous. I may have been getting a lot of luck with the death rolls, but certainly not from fires. We ended off this year by hosting a quaint little peasant dinner, which led to Neville and Abigail officially sharing their feelings and desire to be together. Leading on from this, the year 1306 did not start with as much of a happy ending, as surprise, surprise, we had another fire. At this point, I swear the Sims gods had it out for me, But thankfully, it was quickly dealt with, and we could get onto Anne's birthday celebration, which she thankfully managed to survive, leaving us with a household full of children and toddlers. This year also provided the perfect moment for Neville and Abigail to officially court one another when they both secretly met up at the old castle ruins. Unfortunately, though, this moment was quickly ruined when Christian, of all people, showed up with his new woman and was furious at Abigail for using his secret location. This interaction quickly escalated to an argument and even a brawl at the end, with Abigail reigning supreme. However, this win did not come without sacrifice, as on the way home, Abigail got shot with lightning twice, leaving her eyes a concerning glow and the ability to strike the ground with lightning, which I thought was going to be the end. Thankfully, it wasn't, and we ended the year by discovering that our beautiful Queen Isabella was not pregnant. For the year 1307, our first point of call was to begin prepping the celebrations for Easter, where all the peasant families joined together at the local church to celebrate. It was here that Abigail and Neville announced their courtship to everyone, bringing great joy to all the families. Unfortunately, this was short lived, as we later had Abigail's birthday, in which I was convinced we were going to lose her, but by some miracle, she managed to survive and set in stone her future with Neville. Sigrid also had her child birthday, which she followed in the footsteps of Abigail and managed to survive. To finish this lucky year off, we set our sights to the royal family to see whether Isabella was pregnant, and to my surprise, she finally was. The year 1308 was a very exciting year that initially started off with some All Fool's Day celebrations where all of the adults and Sigrid made their way to the local tavern to cause some mayhem. It was then when we noticed Sigrid's growing appreciation and inkling towards mischief as she spent the entire time finding new people to torment. On a more important note, however, 1308 was the year in which we finally held a small little wedding for Neville and Abigail. It was a beautiful ceremony that went off without a hitch. So, to end off this very exciting year, we once again made our way to the royal family, where some death rolls were in order for both Queen Isabella and her new baby boy Jerome, which they somehow both managed to survive. For our final year in the recap, 1309 started with the birthday of our two boys, who both got extremely lucky in their death rolls. So, to acknowledge this luck, all the families came together to celebrate. It was during this celebration that we also did Arthur's final death roll, which concluded with a short 3 more years of life until he will reach his eventual demise. During 1309, Abigail and Neville also managed to get their families together in order to finally sort out the dowry so they could both start moving out and starting their new lives together. This was a quick venture, and both Neville and Abigail swiftly moved out together and began considering a new addition to their small family. This theme continued as we also jumped back into the royal household in attempts to get their second pregnancy going, which after a few attempts came out positive. But after all these pregnancy attempts, our main household was left struggling to get used to life without their adoring Abigail, so to compensate and fill that hole, the Hastings decided to search around the neighborhood in hopes of introducing a new stray into their home. Elizabeth made quick work of this, and by the end of the year, we had a new addition to our household, little Sylvia. And with that, we have completed an entire recap of the past 10 years in the Hastings household, with still so much more to explore. It has been a somewhat lucky yet rocky venture that I can't wait to continue with you guys. So, of course, if you enjoyed this little recap video, please feel free to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and make sure to check out the rest of the series if you haven't already. But I think on that note, I'm going to end it here. So I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I can't wait to see you next time. But for now, bye everyone.